All right, listen up, y'all.
Greetings, everybody. This is another episode of All Things Education Official. This is your educator and host, Mr. Abdullah. If you like what you're hearing, please subscribe, share, leave a comment. If you don't like what you're hearing, please subscribe, share, leave a comment. Today, we'll be discussing Miss Mesha Mainor's defection from the Democratic Party based upon educational policy.
I think Black people just, that's all we know, right? All we know is to go vote and to be a Democrat. It wasn't until being elected where I'm reading the policy to make the best decisions for my constituents that I'm realizing if you read the fine print, these are things that totally are not in support of communities that I represent. And so
Can you give me some specifics?
The specific would be parent choice, right? In my district, there are schools that only 3% of the kids are meeting academic proficiency. They're failing. They've been failing for 50 years. I'm from that community. And, I challenge people, if the schools have been failing for 50 years, if the community is crime infested for 50 years, and it's been only Democrat leaders in that community, the problem is not the Republicans. The problem is the Democrats. And so I have come to that realization.
Now, what I think we need to focus on is her first statement. It's all we know. Go vote, be a Democrat. And in reference to the educational policies, I definitely am a proponent for what she proposes as a Republican now, parent choice. Her district in Atlanta, Georgia, I think it's Atlanta, I'm not sure, but I know it's definitely representative of Georgia. She is seeing a failing in proficiency. Now, I've done the research, and what I have found is actually, which is very interesting to me, the primary schools, the states that were doing well academically, at least by assessment standards, were blue states. We're talking Democratic states. But there's a caveat. We need to put context to that. If your state is basing proficiency of academics based upon assessments, I can attest to an individual who's been working in blue states for a while that they teach to the test, they teach about the test, they teach for the test. And outside of the test, the information that's given in content areas is not practical and actually is never used after the classroom setting. So we do recognize that even though it is a test-based society, that it does not correlate into success for students after graduation. So even though Democratic states are leading academically, they do not give practical and critical thinking information to students. So parents to be able to decide where their children go to school, what subject matters that they're learning, and the content that they're being taught. That's very, very important. She also spoke about crime-ridden neighborhoods, and we do all know that the most crime-infested states are democratically ran states. Let me add a little point, just for the record. I am not a Democrat nor Republican. I'm a registered independent, but I speak on education from a lens of a parent as well as an educator wanting all children to get the best levels of education possible.
Now, if you went to McDonald's every day and got a burnt hamburger and burnt fries, are you going to keep going back to that McDonald's? I know that Leader Beverly said, no, he's not going. And that's what the children are saying. I don't want to go where the burnt hamburger is. I don't want to go where the burnt fries are. I want a fresh hamburger. I want a fresh education. I want something different. Just give me something different. I am actually screaming because I am the child that will benefit from this. There are some things that are not all the way right for this, and we can fix that later. But if one child can benefit from this, then you should vote for SB 233. And for all the lobbyists, you do not have to roll your eyes at me when you see me.
Burnt burgers and burnt fries. I thought that was an excellent analogy because we know as consumers, if there's a product that we do not like, we tend to stray away from it, tend not to purchase it. But when it comes to education, it's amazing that we don't give half as much thought to the education of our children as we give to our meal on a Saturday night. Most people send their children to neighborhood schools, schools that they refer to, recommended, or schools that they may have went to. And in my particular district, I have seen generations go to the same school. Grandmothers, grandfathers, children's fathers, and the actual children. So I find it to be very interesting that we don't give this level of concern to the school board meetings. We don't give concern to the elected officials that we put onto school boards. I want to say radical decisions that definitely affect our children's welfare and their futures. So going into our second video, I thought I was actually really shocked to see that she was able to recognize this as a lawmaker, because one of the biggest complaints of educators is that educators aren't making the policies, the lawmakers are. And for a lawmaker to say that lawmakers should make educational policy was extremely refreshing and gave me a sense of hope.
In our community committee meetings, they actually would say that parents of poor children, right? Parents of poor children could not make decisions for them. They needed the lawmakers to make the decisions for their children. I completely do not agree with that. I'm happy to be a part of the Republican Party now, so we can address those issues.
Okay. Parents of poor children cannot make decisions for their children. The lawmakers must make those decisions. That, even though it sounds terrible, and it truly is, it's not something that is commonly known. Most parents assume that educators are making the decisions of what curriculums go into the classroom. They think that teachers are deciding how things are taught. It couldn't be any further from the truth. And I implore all parents to attend school board meetings, write your congresspeople, your representatives, find out the legislation that's being placed on your schools, on your districts, the curriculums that are being utilized in your schools. As an educator, I was not even aware that there was a curriculum called the Sankofa curriculum, which is a curriculum that's supposed to teach the African American experience or foundational Black American experience in one of the states in the Eastern Seaboard. I found this out maybe 2 years after it was implemented, but I do know for a fact that before the LGBTQIA curriculum was implemented on the Eastern Seaboard, we were notified that not only would it be implemented, they would be checking behind us to make sure it was implemented properly. So as a parent, I think you have a right to determine whether or not you want your child in a school that focuses on that curriculum. As a matter of fact, you have a right to decide whether or not your child is a participant in any curriculum that you think goes against your core values. When you hear about a lot of red states saying they don't want critical race theory, well, that's that state. And we may say as foundational Black Americans that some of us may say that critical race theory is important. They need to learn about Black American culture, learn about the African diaspora. There are parents who say, I don't want my children to learn that. And as much as I would want my child to learn about all things about us, there are parents who do not want their children to learn it. And I respect their right to not want that for their children. That is their home, it's their children. And people would say that's a horrible way of thinking. As an educator, don't you want all children to learn? I do. But sometimes children have to learn at different rates and at different time periods in their life. And it's not my choice for someone else's child what they learn and how they learn it. Another episode of All Things Education Official. If you have any questions, comments, please leave them in the box. Let me know. What do you think about Mesha Mainor's defection from the Democratic Party, her reasoning, and why she feels that education in Democratic states is faltering? Once again, you are dismissed.
Yeah!